All right, man. This this is a pretty sorry story coming out of Alaska. I'm really touched by this story because back in 2014, I actually made a drunken YouTube video where I proposed to Shiloh Greene. It's probably floating around out there somewhere. But anyway, so she's the reporter that was working at KTVA in Alaska, and right leading up to the legalization vote in Alaska, she was a news anchor, and basically I think she was already set up to be quit or whatever, but she just wanted to grandstand on live TV. She said, "Fuck it, I quit," during her final newscast. So she's pretty much an advocate at that point, or even just a activist. Calling her case a modern day lynching, she is looking at 25 years, up to 24 years in prison right now. Believe that. So this is terrible, man. She calls her case a modern day lynching. Her legal name is Charlene Egby, and she recently expressed concern over her blog over the fact that the entire world seemed to join in on to spread the word of her saying fuck on live television back in 2014, but very few have stepped up to lend any support for the criminal case hanging over her head due to Cannabis Club debacle. And yeah, that's true. I can see that, man. It's a little off a lot of people's radar still, so maybe we should re-release the video and see if we can't get a few donations. I don't know, but more than 100 million people from around the world watch me quit, she wrote. And of now 4,000 members of the Alaska Cannabis Club we've served to date, there was literally only one person at the forced court date to support me. Alright, so recreational marijuana was made legal in Alaska in 2014 after voters approved a ballot measure with overwhelming support. But despite the state's new pot laws, which took effect on February 24, 2015, the Anchorage Police Department has acted as though it does not understand what it means to legalize weed. And they have conducted 2 raids on Greene's Alaska Cannabis Club in March and again in August of last year. Greene says all of the APD shakedown tactics were against the grains of the law. Quote, the officers acted outside the scope of the warrant, conducting unlawful body searches on patients, threatening all patients and club volunteers with arrest if they didn't consent to taking mugshot-like photos on the scene, destroying cameras, seizing vehicles not included in the warrant, and not leaving the lawfully required notice behind, she wrote. So unfortunately, the raids have resulted in the 28-year-old being charged with 10 felonies and a number of misdemeanors associated with establishing the club. Now I think what happened, now the law went into effect in February of 2015. She opened her club, I believe, in August of 2014. So it was before the vote even happened. So I think they were harassing her since before then, and then the raids happened subsequently after that. So anyway, if Greene is convicted, she could spend the next 24 years of her life in the state penitentiary. The passing of Alaska's 2014 marijuana law legalized the cultivation, possession, and sale of cannabis, but the state has struggled to put together the regulations needed for the retail market. So while marijuana has not been legal to purchase from pot shops, the transfer of up to an ounce of pot has been considered a perfectly legal transaction. Greene's Alaska Cannabis Club used this concept by allowing people to purchase memberships and get their hands on complimentary marijuana when they made a donation. It was this business model that prompted investigators to target the club, sending in several undercover officers over the course of a few months to collect enough evidence to build a case. This is bullshit, man. Although court records show that Greene was not directly involved with any of the transactions that prompted the raids, prosecutors have gone after her exclusively because they say that the club and Charlo Greene are one and the same. On her blog, Greene, who has pleaded not guilty to the charges, said the prosecutor lied to the grand jury about the business structure of the Alaska Cannabis Club to convince jurors that charges were justifiable. One juror questioned the district attorney by saying, I don't understand how Charlo can be held criminally accountable for actions where we don't see her actions in any of the transactions here. literally, whoever else was doing the sales, and it could have been a number of people, and nobody would have really got in trouble as long as it was always just under an ounce. They made it so all sales were hers, and if she sold 200 pounds a week, then we can make tickets for every time it was a little whatever. So the DA assured jurors that the club is a sole proprietorship. The Alaska Cannabis Club is sole proprietorship, is owned by one person, so there's not corporate liability, the DA explained. So that's why you'll notice the charging document is Charlene Egby doing business as Alaska Cannabis Club. They are essentially one and the same. I don't know if the actual legal documents are there to back that up, but that's what the DA is claiming. Greene's trial is scheduled to begin within the next few months. She hopes some salvation will emerge from the cannabis community and help bail her out of the unfortunate situation. I need support now more than ever, Greene told High Times. I dedicated my life to fighting for the cannabis plant and the people behind it. Now that I could lose the rest of my life because of cannabis, I feel like the people I fought for have abandoned me. I've never felt more alone. So there you have it. Terrible situation. I can't believe Alaska would even do this. Now there's a lot of different bad things about this story, but one of them, there's one angle that I'm always afraid of, and that's activists getting targeted by police investigations and ramped up railroading of people with, with charges, whether it be legitimate charges or charges that are overblown. There's that. And then there's this other thing that I keep saying, how blacks and other minorities are getting kind of like cut out of the game on these emerging marijuana marketplaces. Is this an example of that, or is it an example of a woman who became successful and is too outspoken getting shut down by the powers that be as well? All three of these things are dichotomies that we've seen in all across the board in the marijuana regulation game, if you want to call it that or whatever. As marijuana becomes more legal, it's happening over and over again. You're seeing a lot less, you're seeing no black entrepreneurship in the game, almost zero. I don't know, I don't see any of it. I live by Flint and I live by Detroit. Barely anybody in the game, whether it be owners or operators or just low-level employees. It's hard to find black or brown people in this industry. And maybe I'm not speaking for the whole country, but I think I'm not wrong when I say that in the emerging marijuana markets, we've seen even the famous NFL football player who's a marijuana activist in the NFL and just retired and tried to get a marijuana business in Maryland, got denied one of the coveted licenses, and that's just another story that adds to the, to the evidence to prove that this is basically something going on, I mean, I don't know. Maybe they focused on her because she was black, maybe because she was a female, maybe both, maybe the activism had part to do with it, like they were always on. I mean, you don't just say, fuck it, I quit on TV, and the local people don't be like, oh my God, you're the news lady that's been giving the news to them for I don't even know how long, but no matter how long it was, they've seen you on the news a couple times, and then all of a sudden you're like, fuck it, I quit. But I love this woman. I proposed a marriage to her. She turned me down. Well, she didn't turn me down. She probably just never even seen it, but if she did, and she did turn it down, that sucks, because could have been a whole new story. But what we need to do is we need to help her out. We need to support her. I have links below for the fundraiser for her. Now the fundraiser, I went there and I looked at it, and it didn't really indicate to me that the help was needed in the legal fees department. But what she was doing was, well, it's almost like a quote, fundraiser to help change local laws. Okay, so she's like, I'm not going to use the money for this, but I am working to change the local laws so this doesn't happen to anybody else. So whatever the case may be, there's that fundraiser, and then also I have linked her Twitter page, which is her blog, quote unquote. So go there and find out everything going on and help her out, I guess. To see somebody, I never report on raids. It's sensationalism, but this is an important story, I think. and she's got a message. She says, "Hey, I was there for you. Please be there for me, and just help her out."